Hello everybody, this is Keith from CryptoCoinMindSet. I hope this video finds you well today. And as always, I'm here to help you get your mindset on crypto. And today we're going to be talking about the new recover feature being rolled out by Ledger. They made the announcement about a week ago. We're going to take a look at what it is, what I think about it. I think my face kind of explains exactly what I think about it. And what are the risks? Should you use it? Should you not? All right, let's jump in. So we're going to take all this information direct from the Ledger website. You can see this is the Ledger Recover FAQs. So we'll start right there. What is Ledger Recover? It's an ID-based key recovery service that provides a backup for your secret recovery phrase. That's it in a nutshell. So if you lose your secret recovery phrase, supposedly this service is going to allow you to recover that. Sounds like something good. I mean, let's be honest, most new people in the space, they don't use devices like the Ledger Nano S in this case, or the Ledger Nano X, because it takes a little bit of technical expertise, and sometimes that expertise is a little beyond people. So that's why they use other wallets like hot wallets and so on, rather than a cold storage device like a hardware wallet. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. As a matter of fact, I'm going to let Andreas Antonopoulos, definitely OG in the space, the OG in the space if you ask me, who just recently had a live stream with Jameson Lopp from Casa, and they talk about not trying to go above your technical abilities. But I don't want to skip there just yet, so sit tight. Let's take a look at the next point that Ledger has here. Why use or why do you need Ledger Recover? Okay, before I even talk anything about that, let's start with you should not need Ledger Recover. If you back up your seed phrase properly, and I talk about that on my website, CryptoCoinMindSet.com, there's an entire section just dedicated to cryptocurrency wallets. Matter of fact, I'll put a link to that entire category in the description below. And you need to remember that, again, in cryptocurrency, the idea is you are the bank. You control your assets. That is how you keep your autonomy and your sovereignty, is by controlling your money. Remember, the money in the bank right now, which these banks are dropping like flies, and I'll put a link to a video I did about that in the description below and in whatever corner here to let you take a look at that. But when your money is in one of these banks, you don't own the money. That's nothing more than an IOU. When your money is in a cold storage device or in your personal self-custody wallet, then you control the keys, you control the coins. Again, let's get back to this. It tells you right here, you're responsible for securing your secret recovery phrase. It goes on to say here that Ledger Recover is designed for users who want to add an enhanced layer of security in case you lose your recovery phrase. And again, that is a possibility. Honestly, that's one of the ways most people lose access to their cryptocurrency, because they lose access to their wallet and their recovery phrase. So for new people who have a high risk tolerance and can trust companies, that doesn't scare me at all. Maybe this service is for you. Let's take a look at a couple of other points before we get into what is probably going to be some opinion, but I'm going to give you a little bit of fact to go with it. So who can access my Ledger wallet? I like how it says, in short, only you can access your wallet. Okay, then what's the point here? But it goes on to say, when you subscribe to the Ledger Recover, a pre-BIP39 version of your private key is encrypted, duplicated, divided into 3 fragments, and each fragment is sent to a different company. What they're doing by creating these shards, encrypting them, and sending them to 3 different companies, of which Ledger is one, and they don't have the best history of protecting user data. But again, maybe for a different video, is something called the Shamir secret sharing process. It was created by an Israeli cryptographer back in 1979. Basically, you take pieces of information, you encrypt it, send it to different parties, and then you need a certain number of those pieces of information in order to access whatever information it is you're trying to keep secret. So Ledger's gonna use their recover service to take your private keys, break them up into 3 different encrypted shards, and send them to 3 different companies, which are in 3 different jurisdictions: France, England, and the United States. Now, I'd like to point out that none of these countries are crypto friendly in any way, shape, or form. So let's look at the most obvious risk to your crypto assets by using this service. What's stopping one of these governments from creating legislation to compel these companies to provide your information? And if they do, and they get access to 2 of these 3 fragments, they can know not only how much cryptocurrency you have, but they can literally reconstitute your wallet, seize your cryptocurrency, take it, gone, see you later. Complete antithesis of a reason for using a hardware wallet. And if you don't think that a government would try to freeze assets, let's think back a little bit to the Canadian trucker strike. Remember Justin Trudeau, the idiot in Canada, tried to get access to the cryptocurrency being used by the truckers after they froze the bank accounts to basically ice these truckers out, no pun intended, of their funds, to try and force a break to what was going on in the Capitol. We're going to take a quick look right now at a video with Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, where he explains why he's so bullish about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and relates it to the trucker strike. I really loved it. It's in playlists I have about the Great Reset and how governments are trying to crush people like me and you. All right, let's take a quick look. I'll put a link to this in the description below, so go ahead and check it out. I appreciate having this available on YouTube.
That's why I am so bullish on crypto, on Bitcoin, because it is decentralized and not controllable. And let me give a fantastic example. So Justin Trudeau said, I don't like me some truckers, so we're going to seize your assets. So then the court went to try to seize the crypto that was being given to the truckers. And I don't know how many of y'all saw a letter that I actually want to read from. It's a letter from a company, Bitcoin company called Nunchuck.
I'm sorry, I just got to stop for a minute and say, I love this letter.
Here's part of the letter. Dear Ontario Superior Court of Justice, our software is free. We do not collect any user identification information beyond email addresses. We also do not hold any keys. Therefore, we cannot freeze our users' accounts.
Again, your keys, your coins, done properly, that's it. They can't access them. Okay, sorry. I know I keep interrupting. The end of this is priceless.
We cannot prevent them from being moved. We do not have the knowledge of, quote, the existence, nature, value, and location of our users' assets. This is by design. Please look up how self-custody and private keys work. When the Canadian dollar becomes worthless, we will be here to serve you too.
Perfect, right? Perfect. But it plays the point that things are not going well in this world. And unless you're living under a rock, you already know that. So personally, I think that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency fixes a lot of that because it limits the control that the government has over you, and it doesn't matter what government it is. You know, all these governments, there are very few that are crypto friendly. There are some that are learning. You can build your economy by being crypto friendly because honestly, let's be honest, cryptocurrency is the future, right? So anyway, I don't want to get, again, too far off the rabbit hole, but be your own bank. That's the idea. So a couple more things just to put this recover service into perspective. This recover service is going to be, I believe it's like $10 a month. So you can have access to these companies in order to recover your secret phrase if you happen to lose it. Now, here to me is where things start to get a little bit confusing. So what should I do with my recovery sheet? Remember, you get a sheet. In fact, let me show you in case you don't have a ledger device. You get a recovery sheet where you can write down your secret phrase, put it in a secure location, and if I could get my fingers to work, there we go. Put it in a secret location and always have access to your funds. Be able to take your money when your device gets run over by a car or burned in a fire or God knows what. Although if you're taking proper precautions, the likelihood of that happening is extremely low. Then be able to reconstitute your wallet and access your funds. So it's asking, what should you do with that recovery sheet once you subscribe to Ledger Recover? Well, it says Ledger Recover can restore your private keys to your device, but it can't help you with your secret recovery phrase. Did it not just say up here that if you lose access to your secret recovery phrase, that's what the purpose of this was for? But yet they're telling you you still need to have this copy because they can't help you with your secret recovery phrase. Furthermore, a couple of other things, again, as of the recording of this video, with regard to this Ledger Recover feature. Right now, you can only use the Ledger Recover feature with the Ledger Nano X. You cannot use it with Stacks or Nano S Plus as of the recording of this video, although they do say later on in this FAQ section that the Recover service will be available for these devices eventually. The last point I want to make is that this Recover service is set for their mobile app. However, in order to update the firmware, which is what you need to do, you need to, well, for all hardware devices, you need to eventually update the firmware because there's all kinds of updates, new points of access, new coins, whatever, that are able to be put on your device. So not updating the firmware will hurt the functionality of the device. When they push that out in the new firmware update, you can only get that firmware update on a laptop using Ledger Live. But yet that update isn't for people who access it via the laptop. Did that sound confusing? Good, because it is. Anyway, again, I think Ledger could have done a much better job at rolling this information out. Again, not trying to get down that rabbit hole. So this might be a service that is useful for people who are relatively new, who want to use a hardware device, but feel that they can't properly secure their private keys on their own. All right, so now that we got the basic idea of what this is, if you're not happy about this, and now I am an affiliate for Ledger. I'm also a user of Ledger. And there are affiliate links in the description below for Ledger. I am not anti-Ledger at this point. I am disappointed in this direction, but again, we'll keep that for the end when I sit and rant to you for a little while. Anyway, but what options do you have if you want to continue to use your Ledger? Well, You could not update the firmware in your device. Again, I told you that's a problem because eventually you're going to lose access to the device and the functionality. Things are going to start to get clunky and potentially just, as updates keep going, it might break the way your device interacts with your wallet. Now, this is supposed to be an opt-in service, so your other option, I guess, if you want to continue to use the Ledger Nano, X in this case, you could just not opt in. My problem with that is there's still code in the firmware on your device that allows for those keys to leave the device. Okay, so then you think, well, what other options do I have for cold storage hardware wallets if, they can just whoop and potentially take my private keys off of my wallet? Well, you could try a different device. And for those of you who have been around my channel for any length of time, you know that the second device that we recommend for hardware wallets is the Trezor. Link for that in the description below. Again, affiliate link. We get a small commission, costs you a thing to use it, and by using it though, you also get whatever specials are going on with Trezor at the time. Now, Trezor is open source, so I appreciate open source projects because you can always audit the code, right? However, that doesn't prevent anyone from adding that same functionality like Ledger's doing with Recover into the code on Trezor or any other device similar. All it does is allows an auditor to say, hey, somebody just put this in there. I guess that's better than, not knowing. Although props to Ledger for putting it out that they're actually adding that onto this device. Or you can create your own cold storage. Now, this is where that technical expertise comes in and where we're going to head over to take a quick listen in on Andreas Antonopoulos. Again, link to his channels in the description below. Head over there, subscribe to him if you don't already do so. Because, again, OG, complete OG in the space. And while we're talking about that, we'll make sure if you're new here, you hit the subscribe button, tick that bell icon, click the all. That way you get notified every time I put out a great video. All right, let's head over and take a listen to Andreas Antonopoulos. And this is where he talks about exceeding your technical expertise.
And I want to be very clear before we go into any detail. A hardware wallet is the best and safest solution for the vast majority of users. 99.99% of users still is. Building your own, doing a DIY solution, using obsolete paper wallets, trying to do some weird encryption scheme, using a USB stick, a custom Linux installation. All of those things are much, much more risky than simply buying and using a hardware wallet correctly. And the biggest risk with all of those solutions isn't that you're going to get your keys stolen, is that you're going to make things so complicated that you will inadvertently exceed your own technical capability and lose access to your own keys by accident, or you'll create a solution where without really knowing what you've done, you've shifted the risk model so far into protecting the confidentiality of the keys, but you've degraded availability being the ability to recover. And at that point, you don't notice that until you lose your seed.
Right, because why else, how often do people actually reconstitute their wallet to reset their wallet? They don't, and why, I guess, would you? In this interview, if you go and watch, again, link in the description below, if you actually go and watch this whole thing, he talks about once a year, he goes through all of his devices and so on, and make sure everything's still working, and adds any new information to his crypto sheets and so on. So in case something should happen to him, his heirs have access, etc. And honestly, that's not a bad practice. It's a good practice, and maybe something I'm going to start doing myself, to be honest. But anyway, you don't know you need it until you need it. And again, you're going to start trying to do stuff to secure your crypto because you're worried about a hacker getting it. And most times, people lose their cryptocurrency because it's stolen from them because they give up their secret phrase. They give up that recovery phrase in a phishing attack or some other kind of potential hacking scheme. And again, head over to my website, CryptoCoinMindset.com. Up on the top bar, there's a link to online security. Check that out. I have an entire series there talking about different methods to help keep you safe online and your crypto safe. Okay, so make sure you check that out. But this brings up another point about the ledger recover. There's got to be an ID verification in order for them to know that you are trying to get access to your wallet because you lost access to your wallet. Well, what's stopping someone from either one, pretending to be you and convincing Ledger and one other, because you only need 2 of the 3 shards in order to reconstitute your wallet, in order to set your wallet back up and access your funds? What's stopping someone from pretending to be you and convincing them to do that? They don't make it very clear exactly what that process is going to be. Secondarily, and what's stopping hackers from targeting Ledger users in phishing attacks to convince them to give up their secret phrase? It's a scary situation that has been opened here because of this Ledger Recover service. Okay, we're going to let this go a little bit more because Andreas also talks about these same vulnerabilities and a couple more.
Yeah,
So
one way that I try to break this down is...
And this is James
is
Lopp
actually a
YT.
mantra that we see very often: safety in numbers. Now, Virus in numeris, this is a motto that we see all the time, and people usually talk about it in terms of cryptography and the very large numbers that are, used with private keys. But this actually applies in many different situations, and one of them is just your own security model, your own setup. If you have a novel setup, if it is a do-it-yourself thing where you're potentially making decisions and going down this logical path that few have ever tread before, it's far more likely that there are weaknesses in there that you've missed. It's actually very similar to open source development. The more eyes that you have on something, the more likely it is the weaknesses will be found and addressed. And that's true. That's true.
And that's kind of what I was hitting on a little while ago, is the fact that open source projects are constantly audited by, just users like you and I who have that ability. I'm not a dev. I'm not a developer. I don't write code. And I'm going to guess that the majority of the people who are watching this video don't either. So when you have thousands, millions of eyes looking at open source code, for example, like with Trezor, when something gets injected in there that shouldn't be injected, you know about it. And that's what he's hitting on.
With all of these hardware manufacturers too. Look, Ledger is a huge company. They have a ton of money. I'm sure they have a ton of engineers. They have one of the most well-respected security teams out there. And they have put a ton of resources into ensuring that their products are quite secure.
Yeah, interestingly enough, one of the articles that did an analysis on Ledger's Recover service mentions that in the entire existence of the Ledger company, which is almost 10 years old, I think 8 or 9 years old now, they had sold 5 million devices before FTX. And then they sold another 1 million devices just since FTX.
And why is that? Because people realize that not your keys, not your coins. And people who are storing their crypto on FTX have lost out. So remember, not your keys, not your coins.
So, that's obviously a huge number of new users. So let's talk about Recover in a bit more detail. I'm going to throw out a few technical terms for our audience. Whether you are into the technical terms or not, they won't be necessary to understand what we're talking about. First of all, how does Ledger split your seed? They do so using an industry standard algorithm called Shamir's secret sharing scheme. And this is one of the few actually mathematically provably secure cryptographic algorithms developed by Shamir in the early 70s. So it's a very old concept. And it allows you to take any number and split it into n independent shards, of which you need k of those shards in a k of n scheme to recover it. So let's say you split it into 3 shards, of which you need 2. And you can calibrate Shamir's to do 3 of 5, 4 of 10, 26 of 1024, or whatever combination you want.
I know I've already explained this, but he does so much of a better job. I love this guy. Love this guy.
It's not clear that what is transmitted from your Ledger device is just the shard, though. Because for obvious reasons, they have to be able to identify which shard belongs to whom. And so when you sign up for this service, these shards would have to be attached somehow to you so that they can identify you in case of a recovery. The technical details don't really matter, but there must be some identifier there. And so very importantly here, and this is a nuance in the FAQ, the original device that did the split is not required for a recovery, meaning that there's no secret encryption key or other identifier that is tied to the original device. You can lose the original device, and they can...
And this is a key point that I think definitely needs to be further explained by Ledger. So what's stopping someone from going and getting a device, pretending they're you, and ta-da, they now have access to your wallet? Nothing. Nothing. I don't want to go too much further in this particular discussion with regard to the shards. There is one other thing that I would like to go over with regard to this interview, and that's how he explains, or they explain, how people misunderstand exactly what hardware wallets are. And it is true. People think that hardware wallets are like the end-all be-all for storage for your cryptocurrency. And at the end of the day, for the average user, for you and I, for people who don't have major technical expertise, well, that might be true. And, you know, you do have that layer of security that it's not connected to the internet like a hot wallet, for example. And you don't have the vulnerability of a paper wallet, which can degrade and can be burned and otherwise destroyed. And once that happens, that's it. It's a paper. So again, I think it plays to the fact that this is a new industry, and we're attributing old standards or current standards in the TradFi system to stuff that affects what is going to be the future technology. So let's take a look at him talking about that.
Well, you know, I think a lot of the outrage, was the fact that people have realized that key exfiltration is possible. And I mean, yeah. and this is, I think, generally a misunderstanding across the entire space of what the guarantees of these hardware devices actually are.
Right.
Obviously, like the firmware of these devices can access to private key material. People just haven't understood that you're hoping, and especially in the case of Ledger being closed source, you're trusting that they simply do not make that functionality available. So, we can look at other devices, and we can literally look at the APIs, the programming interfaces that are made available to developers such as myself when we want to interface with the device, and we can see there is no way to make a call to that device to ask for the private keys. But that doesn't mean that that functionality couldn't be added in the future.
Well, there is now. In this particular case, there is a call to be made. Because if you sign up for Ledger Recover, you would obviously need to activate this. Now, there's a key point to mention here, which is that you would need to authorize it from the device. And Ledger is saying that this is equivalent to authorizing a signature from the device, and it requires the same level of trust of the hardware manufacturer.
Before he gets too deep into that, because I don't, this video is already getting quite long. That point right there, well, if you got a new device, and I get it, you're reconstituting it, but if you go to the video I did with regard to setting up your Ledger device, again, link in the description below, and I'll put it up in the corner here. One of the first things that Ledger does is something called a genuine check, which basically verifies that you're using an actual Ledger device. It's a great, in my opinion, safety feature to make sure you don't have a fake device that just looks like a Ledger, but it actually is a Ledger. Well, if you're doing that, then it's a new device. How does it then know that that is you and that is your wallet? How does it get to the point where, you have to hit the two buttons on top to verify? I don't know. Again, Ledger doesn't make it very clear. And on that note, let's wrap up with my opinion on this. I am not completely against using Ledger. I am happy currently with my Ledger Nano S Plus. I will keep the links in the description below. However, we will follow this very closely to make sure that we are completely up to date with the rollout of this and any other additional or potential pitfalls and vulnerabilities for this device. That being said, when you have a lot of cryptocurrency, it's probably a good idea to not have it all in one basket. You've heard the phrase, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, the same is true here. You shouldn't have all of your cryptocurrency on one device. It's a good idea to spread it out over several devices. I know that might make, securing seed phrases and all this other stuff a bit more tedious and time consuming. However, at the end of the day, if you're using your crypto for different things, you probably should be using different styles of wallets. Cold storage, hot wallets, whatever, depending on exactly what it is you're doing. So for those who are concerned, I understand with regard to what's going on with Ledger. I get it. Trezor is open source, and you just heard him talking about, at least we can see the open source. Doesn't stop them from putting something in the code, but it does mean that it's getting audited and you will have the ability to at least see it when it happens. So you can then take whatever appropriate actions you think need to be taken. All right, that's going to do it for this video. We'll keep you up to date. Watch the blog, CryptoCoinMindset.com. We're putting together an actual article about Ledger Recover. So hopefully that'll be out soon. May already be out depending on when you're watching this video. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button, tick that bell icon, click the all, and make sure you head on over to Cointree. Find all of our official social media sites there. And if you like what I'm doing, feel free to leave a tip. Appreciate that. Thanks for being here today. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.